Welcome back. This is Chicken Philosophy. The Meccan Revelations, part 36, in which I will continue reading the Meccan Revelations by Ibn al-Arabi, a translation of the Futuhat, and a partial translation. Anyway, first, I want to do a bit of bibliomancy, which is just where you flip through a book and stop at a random place. This seems as random as any. So, this is Sufi poetry. Before we get to what I like to call Sufi stereo instructions, I'll read a little bit of Sufi poetry. People who like Sufis usually are into the poetry. The dancing, perhaps. Before the stereo instructions. Oh, before I do that, though, I am going to light something I don't ordinarily light. A bit of patchouli. And Editor Edward, I'm not going to ask you to pop up on the screen, because I know what it's like to be Editor Edward and be editing and be like, oh, okay, now I got to move the thing and do the other thing and light the candle and make sure the little fire walk with me thing on the Mac is lit up, and oh, it's dirty. I was never able to get the candle wax off of it. Oh, you can see it. Oh, when I get into that editing mode, I like to just edit. Sometimes it's fun. Well, when there's a reason, when there, if there's like a theatrical element to it, or if I legitimately really need Editor Edward to define something or look something up, then we involve him. But yeah. Anyway, so there's the patchouli. Oh yeah. That's what I was going to say. Editor Edward, would you put the thumbnail image, the main image for the video of the music track that's playing right now, and at the same time have the link to it appear up there right now? Thank you, Editor Edward. See, he doesn't mind doing things like that as much as having to appear on the screen. I'm just giving him a break for today. Okay, so this is a poem by Hafiz, the Sufi poet. And me from the past, would you remind us when Hafiz was born relative to when Ibn Arabi was born?
The poet Hafiz was born in 1325, passed away in 1390 in what we now call Iran, Persia, basically. And Ibn Arabi was born in what we now call Spain in 1165, and he passed away in Damascus, where he settled and wrote the Futuhat in 1240.
Okay, so Ibn Arabi was someone Hafiz would have been familiar with, but Hafiz wouldn't have been familiar to Ibn Arabi because he hadn't been born yet. Stop calling me a pregnant woman. My master once entered a phase that whenever I would see him, he would say, quote, Hafiz, how did you ever become a pregnant woman? End quote. And I would reply, quote, Dear Attar, you must be speaking the truth, but all of what you say is a mystery to me. End quote. Many months passed by in his blessed company. But one day I lost my patience upon hearing that odd refrain and blurted out, quote, Stop calling me a pregnant woman. End quote. And Attar replied, quote, someday, my sweet Hafiz, all the nonsense in your brain will dry up like a stagnant pool of water beneath the sun. Though if you want to know the truth, I can so clearly see that God has made love to you. And the whole universe is germinating inside your belly. And wonderful words, such enlightening words, will take birth from you and be cradled against thousands of hearts. End quote. That's fun. I had never read that one before. The Gift by Hafiz. One year I bought like 18 copies of this and gave them out for Christmas. All right. Now we shall pick up where we left off last time. All right. Switch the dial from right brain for the enjoyment of Hafiz to left brain for the, I don't know. All right. Okay. Concerning the station of abandoning freedom. Remember, last time it was about freedom. Now it's about abandoning freedom. How should he who never becomes separate from his needs be free while his needs are seeking him? One more time. How should he who never becomes separate from his needs be free while his needs are seeking him? Hence he is poor toward all things. Poverty is his doctrine. Poverty his earnings. God became named for us within the entities of the engendered things, so that his religion might be distinguished for us through speech. None is free in engendered existence, for he seeks us from every direction, and from every direction we seek him. Know, K-N-O-W, know, God give you success, that the abandonment of freedom is pure and utter servitude. The possessor of this station is enslaved by phenomena, for he has attained to the realization of the knowledge of the wisdom in their establishment, so he is lowly before their authority. The possessor of this station is like the earth. Both the pious and the wicked tread upon it, and it bestows its benefits on both the man of faith and the infidel. Phenomena affect him just as supplication on the part of engendered things affect God in that he... Phenomena affect him just as supplication on the part of engendered things affect God. Okay. In that he answers them. He attains the realization of his master, for he sees that this station accompanies him in spite of the independence attributed to him. So what is the state of him whose mount becomes hungry, naked, thirsty, and is slaughtered? Sounds like a party. That was editorial commentary, not part of it. Well, he is commanded to preserve it and to watch over its situation and over that which makes it prosper, his mount, so like his camel or his horse. Nothing weird. God placed him in charge of it and made him a vicegerent within it. It is not within his power to take care of its rights unless phenomena enable him to do so. So he must humble himself in acquiring phenomena, so that he can fulfill God's right upon him directed toward his mount. For God says to him, quote, "Thyself has a right upon thee, thy eye has a right upon thee, and thy guest has a right upon thee." End quote. How can a person faced with rights possess freedom? So every engendered thing has a right upon him. He is slave to that right. He is not free. So be knowledgeable and aware of him, like him who has attained realization. Be not like him who rejects the command of his master once he enters creation. God is Lord, and you are his servant. So be a servant. This has priority. I lay this while he is my hearing. I say this while he is my hearing, and he is my words while I speak. He who is like what I say is the man of knowledge who has been given success. So he is the servant of his self, as long as it demands its right from him, the servant of his eye, as long as it demands its right from him, and the servant of his guest, as long as he demands his right from him. Divine blessings demand that he give thanks to him who blessed him with them, and religious prescriptions are in effect. Compulsion is unavoidable. By definition, you might say. I am a slave to the doggy. Oh, doggy, master me. Or whatever you say to him. Never mind. As long as what? Praise be compelled. Compulsion is unavoidable. If he desires to repel it, it cannot be repelled. Praise and laudation exercise effects upon him, so he says, quote, "Praise belongs to God, the benefactor, the bestower," end quote. Blame, harshness, and annoyance master him. So he says, quote, "Praise belongs to God in every state," end quote. So his praise changes with the change in states. Were the states to change with the change in praise, he would be free of them. The messenger of God said to Abu Bakr al-Siddiq, quote, "What has brought you out?" End quote. He answered, quote, "O messenger of God." Let me turn thy page. No. "O messenger of God, hunger." End quote. The messenger of God said, quote, "I too have been brought out by hunger," end quote. So he went with those companions who were with him to the house of al-Haytham ibn Abi al-Tihan, who sacrificed for them and fed them. So the only thing that brought them out was he who delivered a verdict in favor of that thing, i.e. hunger, which faced them with a right. Hunger is a thing of non-existence. So if an existent is acted upon by a non-existent thing, what should be its state in face of an existent thing? Moreover, people such as these mentioned here have been seen to possess freedom. But because of this tasting, they came out to seek the fulfillment of the rights their selves had upon them. Hence, hunger enslaved them. If they had not come out but remained in their places, they would have been under the coercion of patience and everything that it demands. So the ultimate ascription of excellence to them is that they came out, as we said, seeking to fulfill the rights of themselves through striving, for them, since they had the ability to do this. There is nothing higher than this, for if they had sat back while possessing the ability, they would have been described by wrongdoing and ignorance of the divine decree. I don't know why I said it like that. How can we conceive of freedom in someone whose attributes are such, bracket parentheses, as the above, end bracket parentheses, in both this world and the next? In this world, such is the actual situation, and a person cannot deny it. He may refuse it and disclaim it for himself, but if he does not depend and rely upon phenomena, the most he can do is rely upon God in employing them. So he is then a defective servant, since this is a specific attentiveness. Likewise, in the next world, he is the servant of his passion, since he is under its authority and it rules over him, and servanthood has no meaning other than this, his entrance under properties and the bondage of phenomena. When the knower discerns this for himself, he knows that, quote, freedom, end quote, is the talk of the ego, and an accidental state with no permanence in sobriety. Then, bracket parentheses, he knows, end bracket parentheses, that the abandonment of freedom is a divine attribute. So how can he not abandon it? Its ultimate limit is that in his abandonment of freedom, he should be in the form of the God who requests supplication and seeks repentance and the asking of forgiveness from his servants, who blames them if they do not come to him, come to what he has requested from them. He even says, quote, if you did not sin, God would bring a people who do sin, then repent, so that he might forgive them. End quote. Thus have I appraised you of the mysteries of this station. If you cling to them, you will know yourself and you will know your Lord, and you will not go beyond your own measure. Though freedom has degrees among God's servants, God considers the non-free as greater in degree and more perfect in description. The root is with them, a protector who protects them in the abandonment of freedom and an enslavement to that which wisdom demands. Okay, we read that. I relate with it so little that I don't even have anything to say about it. Except for that. And also I'll keep reading so that isn't what we read today. There were things in it that were kind of like, yeah, I guess that stands to reason if you're coming at it from that point of view. And there were other things that were like, well, I guess if you look at it like that, but if you look at it another way, then it's the opposite. Okay. I guess I'm not a good Sufi. Anyway, the next chapter is called The True Knowledge of Unworthy Utterances. Hey, I was just talking about unworthy utterances. Probably not the same unworthy utterances that Ibn Arabi is going to be talking about, unless he's very self-critical. Unruly? Oh, yeah, no, the chapter says unworthy, but the first phrase in the thing says here, unruly utterances, which are usually known by such terms as, quote, theopathic locutions, end quote. Editor Edward. Theopathy is a noun that means the experience of divine illumination or intense absorption in religious devotion. It can also refer to the religious emotion that comes from meditating on or contemplating God. Locutions. A word or phrase, especially with regard to style or idiom. Another definition, an utterance regarded in terms of its intrinsic meaning or reference as distinct from its function or purpose in context. Thank you, Editor Edward. And also, I'm sorry. The dog has come to improve the episode. All right. Parentheses, Massignon, and parentheses. Can you give me some parentheses explaining what you mean by Massignon? Editor Edward, what's Massignon? Louis Massignon, born July
1883,
died October 1962, was a French Catholic scholar of Islam and a pioneer of Catholic-Muslim mutual understanding. He was an influential figure in the 20th century with regard to the Catholic Church's relationship with Islam, and played a role in Islam being accepted as an Abrahamic faith among Catholics. Huh! Who knew? Here's his picture. So, I think it's safe to say that this opening bit, it's italics, so surely it's either Michel Chodkowitz or William Chittick or something like that. This is obviously not the translation. This is a preamble to the translation of whatever's coming up next. Thank you, Editor Edward. And the landlord's dog has requested that that the episode be over. So we're going to be ending the episode now. Because this particular type of barking seems like the beginning of barking that's going to go on for minimum 20 minutes. And I don't really want to sit here and wait for him to finish. Editor Edward, while we're here, you had something you wanted to mention, right? You were going to do a whole episode, but you decided it was too stupid. Why not do it at the end of this episode while the dog is barking, since people are going to click away anyway? By the way, everybody, thank you for tuning in. No need to stick around. Yeah, until next time. Okay, Editor Edward. Yeah, a few times now, at least a couple times, when Carl Jung, I think it's mostly been Carl Jung, has used the phrase Faustian, and I just never got around to looking into that. Or I remember people talking about Faust, but and then somehow I got it in my head that it had something to do with Nietzsche's Thus Spake Zarathustra. And so earlier, I don't know, something popped into my head, and so I decided to Google it, and I found out the one has nothing to do with the other, and so I was thinking I was going to do a whole episode where I read Wikipedia articles, but then I thought that would be really lame. So I'll do it at the end of an episode of Meccan Revelations. Sometimes episodes of Meccan Revelation are special like that. I think episode 10 was a special one. Faust is the protagonist of a German legend based on the historical Johann Georg Faust, who was born in 1480 and died in 1540, who was a German itinerant alchemist, astrologer, and magician of the German Renaissance, and he was often called a con man and a heretic by the people of medieval Europe. So that's the real Faust. The erudite Faust is highly successful, yet dissatisfied with his life, which leads him to make a pact with the devil at a crossroads, exchanging his soul for unlimited knowledge and worldly pleasures. The Faust legend has been the basis for many literary, artistic, cinematic, and musical works, none of which I've seen, obviously, or read, barely heard about. He strikes me as something that I'm actively disinterested in, actively not, my soul says, who the fuck cares about Faust, but because people make reference to it so often, I want to look into it. Right. So the adjective Faustian implies sacrificing spiritual values for power, knowledge, or material gain. The Faust of early books, as well as the ballads, dramas, movies, and puppet plays, which grew out of them, is irrecoverably damned because he prefers human knowledge over divine knowledge. Quote, he laid the Holy Scriptures behind the door and under the bench, refused to be called Doctor of Theology, but preferred to be styled Doctor of Medicine, end quote. All right, it was a different time. I don't care. Okay, so so books that talk about Faust, the legend Faust, include Das Wangerbuch of 1593, Das Widmansche Faustbuch of 1599, Dr. Faust Groberg, what is that B that looks like, I don't know, und Gewalliger Hollenzwang. If they can't be bothered to translate the titles into English, how could I be bothered to care? Frankfurt, 1609, Dr. Johannes Faust Magia Naturalis et Innaturalis. Well, that one doesn't need any translation, and I'm pretty sure that's Latin. Passau, which doesn't sound German. 1612, Das Faust Busch of 1674, Dr. Faust Groger und Joel Amsterdam 1692, Das Wangerbuch of 1714, and Faustbuch de Christlich Meinenden of 1725. All right. And then Goethe, Goethe, Goethe's Faust.
Goethe.
Another important version of the legend is the play Faust, written by the German author Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. Goethe? Comment below.
Goethe.
The first part, which is one more, I don't care. I'm sorry. Now I know a little bit. I think I know enough. Selected additional dramatic works: Faust by Nicholas Leno, Faust by Ludwig Hermann Wolfram, Dr. Faust dance poem by Heinrich Heine. I know him from Fiddler on the Roof. Happens to be Jewish, I believe. That doesn't matter. You're quite right. I played Fiedka, if it wasn't obvious. Faust, the third part of the tragedy, 1862, by there's a bunch of stuff. A bunch. The most recent being The Devil's Pawn, which is a movie? No, it's a comic poem, short story, or novel, The Master's Apprentice, 2020. So people are still writing about Faust. And there's films too. All right. So he's a 1500s German guy who sold his soul to the devil to be secular instead of religious, or whatever. Or it's a metaphor for leaving behind, morality in a religious context, or whatever, in exchange for riches and pleasure. Meanwhile, in a completely different part of the universe, Thus Spoke Zarathustra, a book for all and none, written by German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, was published in 4 volumes between 1883 and 1885. The protagonist is nominally the historical Zarathustra, more commonly called Zoroaster in the West.
Much of the book consists of discourses by Zarathustra on a wide variety of subjects, most of which end with the refrain, "Thus spoke Zarathustra." The character of Zarathustra first appeared in Nietzsche's earlier book, The Gay Science. I'm sure it's an earlier usage of the word. This style of Nietzsche's Zarathustra was facilitated. Anyway, yeah, I'm not going to sit here and read the whole Wikipedia article, but that has nothing to do with Faust, though perhaps there's a Faustian as an adjective element to it. Maybe we'll read it later, maybe not. I'm neither interested in Thus Spoke Zarathustra, nor Faust particularly. But now I feel like I've read the Cliff Notes, and when Carl Jung makes reference to something being Faustian, then I'll have a little bit better of an idea, and I won't sit there and go, doesn't this have something to do with Nietzsche and Thus Spake Zarathustra? So we've learned something today, or at least I have. All right. So that's our episode of Meccan Revelation for today. And next time it's going to be BT doing Carl Jung, which means he's going to put cards on the screen, and that's always fun. All right. Until next time.